Hey, Bob Cooney here with another episode of Inside the Arena. And this one's going to take us way back. I'm so excited. I've got JP Mullen. And JP was there with one of the very first zero latencies that opened in the world, really, in America, in Arizona, as part of Octane Raceway. And then his journey took him through an acquisition by Bowlero Corp, where he was doing strategy for Bowlero. And so we're going to talk about a decade of being inside the arena in free roam VR. JP, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Good to see you again. I remember
Um,
that first time with Scott Sanders. We went out to, I think it was California, to see that initial zero latency setup and what you guys had done.
yeah, that was at Two-Bit Circus at Brent Bushnell's. Yeah, you guys were able to see kind of what was possible. Maybe we start there. What was it about that early experience? Because it was really basic. What did you see there that kind of suggested that you should get on a plane and go to Australia?
Yeah, it's interesting because zero latency had the big format, and now they're going down to the smaller format with the player room size, and it's actually not all that different from what they have right now. We were able to see the experience, right? So in the game, moving, feeling, standing on the original zombie outbreak elevator, feeling like you're going up, down. I mean, it was just a really unique experience that, especially when you talk about that, man, what was that, 9, 10 years ago, was completely different than anything they had offered. But the zero latency VR was amazing, and they had multiple different games you could choose from. Incredible experience.
I remember going to your venue in Scottsdale, and you guys were talking about taking this giant space next door as an expansion. And I think I convinced you guys to put it in a meeting room instead and move the meeting room out into the common area. I know there was some real skepticism about doing it in the party room because you needed that space for corporate events. How did that play out?
I mean, that's exactly it. We had a long area right next to us, which actually ended up being batting cages a few years later. And we just were looking to expand. We had some throughput constraints with racing, we had long lines. We want to add something that we like zero latency because it wasn't just a small attraction. We wanted a standalone item that we could sell by itself. But truly, with the conference rooms, was a great idea because they made a slight customization for us. So instead of 10 meters by 20 meters, we did 9 meters by 20. The party rooms were only used maybe once a month, and then 10, maybe 12 times during the holidays. So it was a really underutilized space. Group events was huge for us in Scottsdale. It's about 38% of our business. So we didn't take removing that business lightly. But we kind of thought about it of when people are here for events, they didn't want to be in the back party room. So it was best of both worlds for the back banquet rooms to become another destination attraction and then move that party room to more of the central of the grill area.
Yeah, yeah, cool. So there's two things you mentioned there that I want to dig into a little bit. One is you talked about dwell time, and I know karting has, everyone I've ever gone to, sometime if you go during peak hours, you could be waiting hours to play. And the other one is kind of related to that, which is throughput of zero latency, which, or any VR attraction really is going to be constrained. How did it take advantage of dwell time? And considering the throughput constraints, how did you integrate it into these bigger events that you had?
Yeah. So our really key event size was 30 to 40 people. And
Mm.
so they're there for 2 or 3 hours. And so what was nice is a lot of people do two races. That was our always norm. So it was really nice to have when we had a busy Saturday, if they could do one race and then 15-minute VR, or they could do two races and add a 15-minute VR on. So it really helped with that group size. And also, if someone wanted to do just a zero latency VR party, we found people did that a lot. It was a little bit of a challenge to get that extra spend on that because we only did the 15-minute sessions for groups. If it was general public, it was the traditional 30-minute session with 15-minute mission briefing, so about 45 minutes. But the other people that were waiting to do something else, they were kart racing. We had the full bar and restaurant, and then we also later included the axe throwing as well.
And I want to clarify this. I think you might have said that it was hard to get the extra spend VR. Can you clarify what that means and what the challenge was there?
Well, the challenge is in the retail aspect. When people would do two races, they knew that they're going to spend 40 or $50, and that they were going to be here for an hour and a half when they walked in. So we didn't get a lot of individual upselling, but we found the demographic for kart racing was extremely similar to the zero latency VR customer. But the zero latency was a couple years older in the demo, so if we had to wait, and people are already ready to spend $45 and they were here for an hour, but they came in on Saturday and it's like, oh, it's a hour wait. We'll just do zero latency instead. We'll come back. Also for both the attractions to be online and do reservations, because kind of felt in our funnel of how our customer acts, right? They look up what kart racing is, they find the VR. You could book the VR online, or then you could book kart racing, or you could do both.
You mentioned dwell time and you mentioned online booking, right? And so two different conversion strategies there. Um, let's start with converting people who are waiting for karting, because if you have a bunch of reservations and you're booked in advance, that's not available to them. So one is, how did you convert specifically? Did you put strategies there to get people who are waiting for karting into buy zero latency? How did you handle that?
Yeah, it was a challenge because unfortunately, if there's a 2 hour wait, and it was really just the customer education, right? And if someone was there, we had a video going on, we had a discount that we would offer if they couldn't do it right away. If their intention was kart racing, we could do something instantly to like promote them. Hey, I know you want to do kart racing. We'll give you $10 off VR this time if you want to try it out. Our pricing board was all digital, so we had the trailers going on behind us, and it was a modified trailer that showed a little bit more of the player interaction as well as the game. Because sometimes you see the trailer, it's just what's going on inside the game, but we were able to show that. And then we incentivized our staff to do this. So if they had upsell opportunities, we would take care of them as well.
Blaze Witness from Fun Lab in my last one of these. I don't know if you've watched that, but it's definitely worth a watch. And she talked a lot about daily goals, shift goals for employees and staff members to get them to sell and upsell. And she reframed selling as service. She's like, if you just let them know it's available, oftentimes they'll take advantage of it. And so what did you do as far as employee incentives? Because that seems to be, I think, a challenge for a lot of people, is letting these unused sessions just drift by.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, we're trying to do what's best for the guest, right? And so if you come and there's a 2 3 hour wait, so it's just kind of selling what's best for them. And all of our employees were well versed in VR and honestly really passionate about it. So that was really important that whenever we got a new game, we all did it. It was team building, learn about it, enjoy it. After that, we really set up a gamification where we had a leaderboard. So it wasn't really sales quotas or mandatory numbers, but we would actually have like 10 front desk people, and we would have a point system for 3 race, 5 race packages, because averages two, zero latency sessions, game cards over starting at $20 and up. So you get one point for a 3 race pack, two for a 5 race pack, one for a VR session. And so at the end of the week, you could see who is in the top. We also did a small commission fee, so whether it's 50 cents or a dollar. But at the end of the day, it was $100, maybe even $150 for our top people for a pay period, and that made a lot to them. And so it wasn't just, hey, we want you to do this. This is very fun for the guests, but it hit them in the bank, and I think that helped a lot too.
Yeah, you got to do both. What, and how did you track that? Was it in your POS system, or?
Yep, Club Speed. It was a nightly thing that the closing manager would do. They'd just pull up the two people that were working the front desk that night, and they would do a user report. And they did, two 3 race packages, 5 race packages, and 10 VR sessions. And so we would just add that to an Excel sheet throughout the night. And at the end of 2 weeks, we would, add up the total. There's a formula for a commission structure, and add that on the paycheck.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Brilliant. I love that idea.
I think the gamification is really good, as much, if not more, because once it's posted in the break room that someone was the top seller and they had 100 points or whatever it might be, it was like, what are you doing? How does it work? There is something to see that the person next to him, is almost like a peer-approved process of like, what are you doing to kill it with selling? Can you teach me? Can you help me? And also really helped us recognize who are the aces in places, right? So you want to have that top seller on Saturday afternoon or a mid that they can also start help training and teaching as well.
Did you say aces in places?
Aces and places. Yep, absolutely.
Man, we're getting so many buzzwords. We're getting pack the gaps and peak the peaks and aces in places, and this is
Yeah.
awesome. Buzzword central. All right, so we talked about conversion of people coming and some of the challenges there. And what about the online booking thing? Because I think you said a lot of your karting was online booked. A lot of VR we know is online booked. Do you have any insights you can share about kind of online booking and who tends to do it and how it works and what did you do there?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things you recommended in the very beginning was you treat it like a separate entity, right? So we had our own social media, we had our own Google business page with the same address. We even had its own website. We really wanted to do that to make it sound like a standalone, business entity that you want to pay $45 for. This wasn't a $8 laser tag add-on. This was I'm going for this, and so we took that same approach. Scottsdale's very tourist busy as well. And so when we had chamber sites or we had listings on local business partners or anybody else, we always had zero latency as a separate thing. And then driving everything was trying to push online. And that was a great deal with promo codes, temporary. The pricing structure was always important too. We did $45 7 days a week. And then we kind of always had a weekday discount.
And so you were early in pushing the price. Like, what's a karting session on a per minute that you want of actual track time that you're selling it for?
Yeah, I mean, most races go for about $25, two for 45, and it's a 10-minute session, but it's really, maybe 8 minutes, so $3 a minute.
What was your experience with pricing through that?
We discussed it. It was a challenge for us because you want to lower the price because it's expensive and you're thinking to get more people. But we varied the price. We, weekends, weekdays, we play with different promotions. It wasn't really the consumer was not really affected all that much, particularly on weekends on price. It's a unique customer. It takes a lot of customer education. You don't want to be charging $50, $60, $70 because especially with kart racing being in that $45 to $50 for 2 races, we wanted to keep it very similar. But that was always our thought process. And whenever we lowered our price, we didn't see more sessions. We just saw less money coming into the
Yeah.
cafe.
Yeah, like there's this myth of price elasticity in VR that, especially in the high end stuff, that I've never heard anybody that actually tested it tell me that it's a thing. And so, one more confirmation on that, and this is what, Blaze says, peak the peaks, man. When people want to, she compared it to an airplane, right?
Yep.
And if
Yeah.
you want to fly on Friday afternoon or Monday morning, with the business people, you're going to pay top dollar. And if you're okay taking the red eye, you might get a cheaper flight. And I think that's a great metaphor. So what did you see about like the mindset of the customers across those two genres, and why do you think it works so well together?
I think the main customer is an experiential thrill seeker. They also want to do something outside the box, right? So again, with all the other, FECs, whether it's bowling or like a Top Golf or a main event, it's kind of within that same norm of implied similar experience that you feel comfortable with. This is something that somebody wants to do something different. And a lot of times it's bring other people to come with them to do it as well. So again, it's families, small groups. A lot of times you'll have that net promoter score champion who's done it before, whether it's a corporate event and like, this was amazing. I want to share this with other people. Let's go do something together. So that shared experience of doing something different and unique and physical in that aspect, there was a lot of crossover. I think there's a little bit of a higher demo as far as the income on the VR because it's a little bit more of a premium experience for how frequent you would do something like that. But very similar customer.
Yeah, interesting. And did you find a lot of, again, two capacity constrained businesses, both booked online? What percentage of zero latency did you find booked online versus walk in or convert over from the karting business?
It's tough when we talk about the converting from karting business because when they walk in, it's hard to tell if they were coming for zero latency. But that's why it was such a good fit because when there was a constraint for kart racing, it was pretty easy to sell with the footprint that we already had to put a premium attraction. But On the weekends, it was probably over 50, 60% was booked online. Weekdays was even more because it was more of a destination like, hey, we're coming on a Thursday. We know when we're going to come, that we're coming for this versus there's a time constraint for kart racing and then we're going to do this as an alternative.
Yeah.
But we did combo packages that did pretty well. Again, majority of it was an either or, but we definitely did some combo packages, particularly with groups. It was just another fun, unique attraction that set us apart from the other K1 speeds or other, kart racing venues. That this was much more than just a snack shop and racetrack in a industrial warehouse. It was a full experience as well, which was huge for us.
Yeah. That's a great segue. So then, and so it really was like a karting track, and then you had zero latency, and you had the restaurant, the F&B, and then you guys went through this huge expansion. Talk a little bit about that, and then how did you position zero latency within the new? Was it Mavericks? Is that what it was called?
Yeah. So I think we've always kind of heard from evolve or die on a lot what we're trying to do. So zero latency was kind of our first major investment and iteration of Octane Raceway. We always had 2025 arcade pieces with a prize hub that was self-service, and then our F&B went from more of an order counter to sit down at bar ordering with more premium food and beverage. It was always an anchor attraction. We always treated it like that. And then the Toys R Us next door closed, and we saw as an opportunity. We thought it could be a really good fit. So Octane Raceway was 45,000 square feet with a 15,000 square foot pavilion. And then right next door, there was a 45,000 square foot Toys R Us that went out of business. So we utilized that as an extension. We were able to do the same liquor license, so you could walk technically from one to the other. There's a shared patio, but we added 20 lanes of bowling, scratch F&B. We had actually 4 bars, a main F&B restaurant, more like a sports bar, and then in the VIP bowling lanes, we had the Spark Bowling as well.
Did you put all of that under one overarching brand, or did you still keep them separate?
So we had thought about that long and hard about how and why, and the big difference was Octane was not a high level service model. It was more get your tickets for racing or VR, and it was go to the bar to order food and someone would bring it out. It was a different F&B experience, 100%, and then it was a different corporate event experience. We would have one event host. When you think of Mavericks, it was much more a premium, high-end cocktail experience where we were doing craft cocktails. You would do a birthday party or a VIP event. We did events for like Devin Booker's birthday party, multiple Super Bowl events when it was in town. It was very, very high end, and we didn't want people to think Octane Raceway had bowling and food. We talked about Octane Entertainment or Octane Lanes to kind of conjoin it, but we found it'd be better to disassociate from what we wanted to do in providing a more Scottsdale high-end experience, which we thought the market needed, versus Octane initially. And part of it, people think that you're going to go into a dirty warehouse that smells like gasoline, which we were at F1 Waste Factory at one point in time. We want to have the brands be completely different.
Did you think about relocating zero latency into Mavericks?
We didn't, and part of the reason why I know Main Event was one of the first people to try the zero latency. I personally believe zero latency succeeds the most when you have that smaller throughput and different add-on and different customer. If you were the target market with still moms with young kids, because you do bowling, arcade, laser tag, a family of 4 would spend, $20 each to do rides, attractions, and do that. When you're adding a $45 add-on, they're not spending an extra $200 to $300 on a zero latency experience. We definitely thought about it for corporate events or anything else, but it was such a good pairing with kart racing and that demo. It made sense to keep it there.
Did you see a lot of bounce back? And did you do anything to encourage bounce back between karting racers and zero latency? And was there any way for you to measure the success of that?
Yeah, we had combos. Combos did really well. It just came at to the point where we felt to do two races in a VR. We were getting down to like that $30 VR price point where we saw a lot of success, but we were able to sell individual sessions at a higher price.
Got it.
So we didn't have to do that. And as far as the combos, it really just got that similar customer into our database, right? And so we're sending out bi-weekly emails, and it's kart racing, and then it's VR, and then it's corporate events, and then it's birthday parties, and we kind of churn it all together. When we did the safety briefing video, we did a 30-second trailer when you're sitting in your cart and you watch the Zero Latency VR. We did a walk-in huge digital screen where you could see the trailer. So it was everywhere, and we really want to push the education of it because it was a unique experience. And between the race results sheets having a discount or coupon, or on our website some discount combo, it wasn't necessarily you bought it at the same time you came in for kart racing, but you're going to come to kart racing or Octane Raceway 3-4 times a year. One of those times was going to be for VR, and that's how we integrated that into our marketing plan.
Yeah, cool. You mentioned that Scottsdale is a big tourist market. Did you work with any online travel agencies like TripAdvisor or any of that? And if so, how effective was that?
Yeah, I mean, for the TripAdvisor, working on reviews and rankings is always important. Destination management companies, DMCs, were huge for us. Again, our corporate business was 38% at Octane. So we would reach out to them and we would host meet and greets. We would give information, we would give flyers, free passes to come down and experience it. It was a huge part of our sales team. So between the three of them following up with, again, local chambers, DMCs, or anything else that we could do to drive group traffic, it was a huge point of emphasis for us.
You got to do all. You got to do it all, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. When you think about strategy and you think about attraction strategy, how do you think about it? Like, if you were to build a new FEC today, like how would you approach, because there's so many attractions, right? There's
Yeah.
so much stuff to choose from. And how would you think about it today?
Yeah. There's two different types of FECs as I see. One are FECs that are heavily with F&B. And so I think it's really great bowling, arcade, and ancillary attractions, but some things that you can do while you're sitting down and eating and drinking and having F&B be a premium draw. I think there's also zero latency, and kart racing is more of an attraction FEC. So to have ancillary items where you can keep people busy in between. You can have light F&B, I think is a good way to go. Anything that you can create value to me is super important. I think we get fixed on how many dollars per minute on certain attractions, but if you can have multiple attractions and it's all about value, and then that got people in to enjoy F&B. They would pay more for arcade games. It would increase length of stay. With kart racing, if you could do, still have an anchor attraction, but include other items that are, ancillary to it and create value, whether it's combos, then I think the keyword is value for this current economy, and a good way to
Mm.
move forward with a lot of packages.
Did your pricing strategy for VR and or karting change over that decade that they were together?
Yeah, there wasn't a huge one, mainly because with the bandwidth of both attractions and in the current location, the demand was much greater. It changed from how can we add value. So we did more affordable game cards. We didn't have really high arcade game pricing. Axe throwing, people were doing hour, 2 hour sessions. We were doing 30-minute sessions just to give something to do for people to go in between. Because once you had an hour wait, it's like, what can we do? And we had an empty axe throwing. So people didn't want to, spend $25 for an hour, but we did it $10 for half hour just to give something to do and really enjoy the experience. So it really became positioning of scheduling. The online booking was huge for us because we might be busy from 2 to 8 on a Saturday, they would book online and say, hey, they're sold out from 2 to 8. Let's go at 12. Or, hey,
Yeah.
guys, let's not go before dinner. We're going to have a bachelor party. We're going to have dinner and then go kart racing afterwards. And they book at 9 o'clock. So the positioning for us at Octane specifically tended to be more of how can we better accommodate the guests and add value versus adjusting pricing all that much.
Yeah, cool. So every year for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years at IAPA, everybody wants to build an FEC. I asked them this year, how many of you have had, from a business perspective, a shit VR experience? And almost everybody in the room raised their hand. To operators who basically did it, because lots of operators got into VR pre-pandemic, right? It was like the hot thing. Everybody had to have a VR. And then the pandemic hit, supply chain issues, you couldn't get cables, labor rates went through the roof, and they all feel burned, especially in America. It's blowing up everywhere else in the world, but America has this real kind of anti-VR bias I sense in FECs right now.
Mm-hmm.
You guys seem to have had great success with it. What would you say to the FEC community, as far as how they should look at VR in 2026, or should they?
Yeah, I think if it's the right demo and the right attraction, and you have to really position it as a key thing for the venue. It can't be that extra thing that's added on, or people are spending so much for a pass, but you have to pay an extra $15 for the VR session. When you treat it as a main attraction, it does much better, and that's in your positioning within the FEC. It's in how you maintain your equipment. It's how you train your staff and how you sell the product. So the zero latency does really well because that's how we treated it. It was a star attraction, and when people see that you're passionate about that product, and you truly enjoy the experience, it's something important. I think it's when people add on VR on arcade games or small onesie twosie things. It gets to be a lot. Also, the labor model with 2 or 3 different VR attractions. So you have a hologate, you have a VR, you have a hyperdeck. It's hard to operate that. I'm a very labor minimalist, which I think everyone's starting to trend that way too. Just to have one quality piece is much better than having 4, because you just have greater challenges with training, pieces failing, and having one good piece is always worthwhile.
So you were one of the first VR locations in the world, well, zero latency and VR locations in the world, right? And so you would have had the Gen 1 system with the backpacks. And
Mm.
you guys, did you upgrade at each generation?
Yeah, we went from each generation because we went from the batteries. There's always a challenge in that first gen. We're also extremely regimented on our scheduling, because if someone had a VR at 4 o'clock and a race at 5 o'clock and we were running a half hour behind, we saw it important for the battery life and consistency to go from Gen 1 to Gen 2. And then the no backpacks was a game changer for Gen 3. It's not having to strap up, so to have that additional freedom and kind of like that lack of putting on more equipment was a big advantage. And then of course you kind of got to upgrade to some of the newer games as well. So it was a good process for us, and definitely a needed upgrade each time we did it, and we're glad we did.
I talk to a lot of operators that struggle reinvesting in equipment, whether it's VR or anything, right? They have this,
Mhm.
you buy an arcade game, it might run for 20 years. And how did you get over the financial lump in the throat where you had to actually, depreciate this thing every few years and then reinvest? And how did you look at those decisions?
Yeah, so we actually did something very similar with kart racing, which might be a little bit more relatable than the steps with the VR. But we upgraded our carts every 3, maybe 4 years, which is very much a regular back then, and even more so now. A lot of people get their whatever $500,000 in go-karts and they use them for 5, 10, 15 years, and they just keep on fixing them. It's very similar to when you have your used car, 3 years and 60,000 miles. You can either keep on repairing it, but we saw it as an opportunity to reinvest and let our customer know that we're always going to have a premium product. It's not going to fail. We're going to have all the new games and attractions, bells and whistles. And for the cart specifically, we could sell the carts that were 3 years old at half price. Some of our VR equipment did go to other consumers that wanted just more of the old Gen 1 batteries or some more packs. So we were able to kind of, you know, it wasn't a complete cost for upgrade. Got some value out of it, some core costs out of it. But with the kart racing, it was always in our kind of core value to have that top of the line premium product. And we saw that with not having any downtime, with having the latest and greatest, we were able to be successful with that. We kind of had a very similar idea with the zero latency system is that, hey, it's going to cost us, but it was very clear that with the improvement in games, performance, and consistency, that it was going to be worth it as well.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Did you see changing consumer perception over time too? How did you see consumer perception change, not only around just VR in general, but as you went from Gen 1 to Gen 2 to Gen 3?
It's always been a challenge. And so, whether it's our digital advertising or a website or a strategy, we've always been, you got to educate the consumer as much as possible because initially it was everyone had the phone that you could put up on your VR headset with the two handsets and you could, do a roller coaster when 10 years ago and people like, oh, that's nauseous. I don't do anything more. And then you had to compete with, oh, it's just a hologate and you're tethered and you're shooting around. So it's always been a challenge, but being able to get people in the door, being champions of the experience, having a really good website and marketing to show the videos of people truly running around, high fiving, being interactive with each other, really showed that it was a different experience. But it's definitely been a challenge with the zero latency because it's such a different VR and customer education is a huge part of that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you mentioned marketing. What worked best for you guys?
It's probably similar across a lot of markets and a lot of FECs. The digital was huge for us. We were very much special, event driven, and community driven. I think that really set us apart. We would do canned food drives where we had a NASCAR. It was called Stock the Car. Bring in 10 canned food items and get $10 off VR, $10 off car racing. We would do a press release on that, and the local news station would come down and they would do that. We would do a man brunch for Father's Day, and you could do a brunch in VR, brunch and kart racing combo. And so again, it was great visuals, right? It's an extremely fun thing to do with around Halloween, the zombie VR shootout. So we try to let people know what we were. We had a really good reason. We almost always tied into some community aspect too, right? So in October, we had pink head socks for kart racing, and we just gave 100% of the revenue of that towards American Cancer Society. So anything that we could do on a monthly basis to tie in some of the main attractions or some of the main events and create a month-long event out of it, and usually tied it into multiple aspects of the venue. I think that's what was different because I think you're all going to hear the digital advertising, maybe some radio and some social media, but to truly do that got people to share it and be champions of Octane Raceway Mavericks.
Yeah, that's interesting because I remember when I was a kid in the 1800s when arcades, mall arcades first showed up, and it was the one I went to when I was in high school. It was a community center. It truly was a place of community. Did you have somebody who owned that within your business to create those concepts and to activate them? Because I know that it's a lot of work, it sounds like.
Honestly, that's what I'm passionate about. I have a marketing background. And so a lot of what we did it was team built. It was really listening to our staff and some of the people in our community that, oh, we had a kart racing league member that was going through something. How can we benefit them or bring more awareness to something that they were going through? So it was something that was passionate for me to work with the employees and the guests regarding it. And so that's what I championed. But it was very much of, all right, marketing manager, let's think of some ways that we can do this. Sales team, how can we be part of that and work as a combined team? But I think that's what makes an independent local business great, and that's why I always pushed it.
Yeah, it's good. I want to circle back. I want to circle back to the reinvestment thing and just hit on the, just the overall financial performance of this, compared to, like, you've done a lot of different attractions now. How did ZL, how quickly did it pay for itself in that first version, second version, third version? And how did you see revenue over the years?
Mhm.
How did it play out for you guys?
It was a slow ramp up for us because we were first one to do it. There wasn't any name recognition. There wasn't any other zero latencies. We were Velocity VR because the initial convention was zero latency was to have independent, which I'm glad that they've kind of gone to the everyone's a zero latency VR. So if you hear about it in the news or an article, you can kind of do that. But it was definitely a slow ramp for us. But that being said, within about a year, we were, made our ROI on the investment. It was also significantly more that first round versus the
Yeah,
Gen 3.
wow. That's
So,
amazing.
yeah, we did really well with it. And yeah, no, it's always been a really good investment for us because it was just, a key attraction that did well.
Did you see revenue over, like, over the 10-year period? Did it hold steady? Did it continue to climb? Did it fall off? What happened over that long journey?
Yeah, so after the first year, we were doing really well, and we saw steady, 5 to 10% increases year over year as more people learned about it, became more invested into the company, as well as group events. We did kind of hit a plateau. That being said, it was pretty much we were sold out on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, and then some weekday group event traffic. And so we saw pretty good bump after the first 6 months, and then 5 to 10% increases. The last few years, it was kind of flat based off of just availability for the most part.
Did you play around with, as you were sold out, like continuing to increase price incrementally to find that, what I call the level of no-ness, the point where people say, "Nah, I'm just not going to do it."
We didn't, and I think there's something else to look at with some restaurant models, right? So whether it's your favorite pasta place, your pizza place, or your In and Out, where you keep the prices flat and you always have a wait, and you always have a demand, and you always have
Mm.
people moving around earlier or later in the day to come to you. So similar with kart racing, we had um, 5 6 hour waits on Saturdays during peak times where people come at 1 o'clock. The next race is at 7 o'clock. We also didn't want to take advantage of the customer. We were pretty much $20 to $23 during the week and 25 to $28 on the weekend. I think
Yeah.
getting too high on the 30, 35, $40 could have done it. And we had enough tourism traffic. We could have taken advantage of that. But I think part of it was, taking care of the guest and not try to price gouge too.
Yeah, cool. And what did you see when new content dropped? How did that affect your, the business in general?
Oh yeah, it was great because people had already had they probably played 1 or 2 games and they had their favorite and they're like, what if they did this or how could you do this? And then that game would come out. Oh, you can be in a helicopter or oh, you can be playing Soul Raiders, play one team versus another team because they're like that was a big thing when Soul Raiders came out is that everyone's doing the same path and once you do it a couple of times it came a little bit repetitive and people were wanting to do something different and so Soul Raiders I love because it was always a unique experience because you're playing some people would go in the towers some people would be hiding and kind of crouching more but it was always a unique experience every time you played.
It's really interesting that you hit on Soul Raiders because it was a competitive game. And I haven't heard another operator mention Soul Raiders when I talked to them. How much did that work, do you think, in your venue because of that competitive mindset of the customers?
It was huge because that's exactly what like we had leagues where people could compete and it was an easy crossover. So we would do the Soul tournament where we could do some ladder challenge or we'd have teams worked well with corporate. So it was a really good integration. Soul Raiders was great because we got a lot of repeat customers out of it and did really well for us.
I travel all the time. Like I booked 5 flights last week, right? And you just see it. Like I
Yeah.
just got a notification from Google Flights that a flight I booked for $200 last week is now $700,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
so,
Crazy.
we're seeing it everywhere, and it's a real delicate balance between brand and profit, right? Because if you do start being seen as somebody who's gouging price, it starts eroding the brand, and that opens yourself up for competition, which constantly is emerging in these markets. And so, you've talked about community and how important this is for you and personally, and you hinted that you've got a new project going on. You want to talk at all about what's next for you? And
Yeah, I am very passionate about the family entertainment center industry. I think I have a really good knowledge. Um, I like some of the big box trends that you can get at value. I think having multiple attractions that allows you to do things a little bit more affordable for people, to be all inclusive of a lot of different things. I still love kart racing. I think it's a huge draw. I think if you do it right, it's a tough operation to do, but um, with it being a key attraction, that the per minute value is huge. So the other thing I always look for in FECs are, I think what we did really well at Mavericks, particularly, I think it was one of the highest big boxes. Look for your core demographics of kids, teens that are going to come out. You have the adults for after hours, for F&B, and your corporate. So anything that you can do that targets all three is the way to go. It's tough to be um, only towards little kiddie rides and hope that other people stick around. You have to constantly get that customer acquisition. So if you can get that customer life cycle, that's really important to do. And the corporate drives your weekdays. So my next venture is going to be a combination of a few things. Definitely want to have VR be a part of it, but I definitely want to have it be a key part going forward.
I love that angle of understanding the customer, understanding the mindset of people who want to come and race, whether they're competing against their friends or competing against the clock. Awesome. Dude, thanks so much for doing this. I know you got to go run and do some family stuff, but yeah, I can't wait to see what you do next too. And so,
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
excited for the next iteration. I just saw that the Jumanji IP is coming, so I think that's going to take it to the next level. Things that you can share with friends and family that tie in that IP is going to be huge for zero latency, and I think it's going to be instant credibility when it comes to, hey, why am I paying $45 if it can be tied to a major, Marvel movie, interactive game? I think it's going to be great.
yeah, and Jumanji with The Rock and Jack Black and Chris Tucker, like the star power of that is amazing. This is by far the Sony's biggest IP. Like I know the guys at Sony, and Jumanji is like rare earth that you don't get to touch unless you really can guarantee you're going to do right by the brand.
Yeah, and it's not just a shooter experience. I think that's a really good avenue to not be just that demographic of more male shooter, to have more of a fun interactive experience would be huge.
I'm so curious about that, and I'm crossing my fingers and holding my breath that you're right.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. Absolutely, I appreciate
Okay,
it.
cool. Well, JP, I appreciate your time. Good luck with the next thing. Keep me posted on what's happening, and for everybody out there, yeah, keep watching for more Inside the Arena shows where we go really deep into what makes this fit, what doesn't make it fit, how do you make money with VR. Stay tuned. If you got questions, just reach out to me on LinkedIn or go to the VRcollective.com. And quick plug for Lexra, LEXRA.org, the new trade association for location-based XR businesses. If you're playing in this space, you should join. We'll see you next time.